The hospital lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps as I stood frozen in the corridor, watching through the glass window as doctors worked on my daughter. My daughter. But the words felt hollow now, like an echo in an empty room. Mr. Attawale, the doctor called, approaching with a manila folder clutched against his chest. His expression was carefully neutral, the kind of face medical professionals wear when they're about to deliver news that will change everything. We need to discuss the test results. Elizabeth stood beside me, her hand no longer reaching for mine. The space between us felt like an ocean now, cold and deep. Her face was pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. She knew what was coming. I could see it in the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. The DNA results are conclusive, the doctor said quietly, glancing between us. Mr. Attawale, you are not the biological father of this child. The words hung in the air like smoke after a gunshot. My knees weakened, but I forced myself to remain standing. I turned slowly to Elizabeth, searching her face for denial, for shock, for anything that might suggest she was as blindsided as I was. Instead, I saw tears streaming down her cheeks and something else buried beneath them. Guilt. Eniola, she whispered, reaching for me. I stepped back, my hands trembling. Don't touch me. My voice came out strangled, barely recognizable as my own. How long have you known? She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I wasn't sure. I thought. You thought what? My voice rose, drawing the attention of nurses passing by. You thought you could lie to me? Use me? Make me believe that child was mine while I rotted in prison for crimes I didn't commit. It's not like that, Elizabeth sobbed, her shoulders shaking. Please, let me explain. Explain. I laughed bitterly, the sound harsh and broken. What's there to explain? While I was locked in that cage, fighting for my life every day, believing I was fighting for my family, you knew the truth. You knew that child wasn't mine. The doctor cleared his throat uncomfortably. Perhaps we should move this conversation to a private room. Who is the father? I demanded, ignoring him completely. My eyes bore into Elizabeth's, demanding the truth she'd kept hidden. Who, Elizabeth? Who is he? She wiped her face with shaking hands, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Richie, she whispered so softly I almost didn't hear. The name hit me like a physical blow. Richie? Your ex-husband? The man who put me in prison. I staggered backward, my back hitting the wall. The man who tried to have that baby killed, is the father? Elizabeth's sobs grew louder, her body folding in on itself. He doesn't know. He never knew. That's why he wanted her gone when I told him about the pregnancy before you came into my life. I claimed she was his, he rejected it. He thought she was yours. That's why he hated you so much. That's why he did everything to destroy you. My mind spun, trying to piece together the web of lies and deception. So you used me. You used me as a shield, as a weapon against him. You let me believe I was a father, let me go to prison, let me suffer, all to protect yourself and a child that wasn't even mine. No. Elizabeth moved toward me, desperation in her eyes. I cared about you. I still care about you. Yes, I made mistakes, but I never wanted you to go to prison. That was all Richie. He's the monster here, not me. You're both monsters, I said, my voice hollow. You both used me like a piece on a chessboard. And now that baby in there, fighting for her life. She's the real victim. Not you. Not me. Her. The doctor stepped forward. Mr. Attawale, regardless of biology, the child still needs blood. We've contacted Mr. Holt's family for testing. But right now. Contact whoever you need, I interrupted, pushing away from the wall. Do whatever it takes to save her. She didn't ask for any of this. I looked at Lizabeth one last time, seeing not the powerful woman I'd once admired, but a stranger wearing her face. But when she's safe, I'm done. With you, with this lie, with all of it. I walked away, my footsteps echoing down the sterile corridor. Behind me, I could hear Lizabeth's broken sobs, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. Because if I did, I might lose what little remained of my sanity. Outside the hospital, the Toronto night air hit my face like ice water. I leaned against the brick wall, gulping in breath after breath, trying to steady myself. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Shui, my brother who'd finally made it to Canada just days ago. Big brother, where are you? I'm at the apartment. Is everything okay? I stared at the message, my vision blurring with tears I'd been holding back. No, I wanted to type. Nothing is okay. Everything I believed was a lie. Instead I wrote, stay there. I'm coming. As I walked toward the subway station, my mind churned with questions. If the baby wasn't mine, what else had Lizabeth lied about? Had anything between us been real? And what about the drugs in my suitcase, the ones that had sent me to prison? A terrible thought crept into my mind like poison. What if Lizabeth had known about them all along? The apartment was dark when I entered, except for the glow of the television casting blue shadows across the room. Shai sat on the couch, his young face illuminated by the screen, but his eyes weren't watching whatever program played. They were fixed on the door, waiting for me. Eniola. He jumped up the moment he saw me, rushing over with the enthusiasm of a younger brother who'd crossed an ocean to reunite with family. But his smile faltered when he got close enough to see my face. What happened? You look broken. I finished for him, dropping my keys on the counter. That's because I am. Shui's brow furrowed with concern. He'd grown since I'd last seen him in Lagos, taller, his shoulders broader, but his eyes still held that innocent worry that reminded me he was still just a kid trying to navigate an adult's world. Is it the baby? Is she okay? I moved to the window, staring out at the Toronto skyline, the lights of the city blinking like indifferent stars. The baby will live. They found a donor. I paused, my jaw clenching. Turns out she's not mine. The silence that followed was deafening. I could feel Shui processing the information, trying to understand the magnitude of what I'd just said. Not yours, he finally whispered. But Lizabeth said, everyone said. Everyone was wrong. Or lied. I'm not sure which is worse. I turned to face him, and in the dim light, I could see the shock written across his features. She's Richie's daughter. The same man who put me in prison, who tried to have her killed, he's the father. And Lizabeth knew. She knew all along. Shui sank back onto the couch, his hands running through his hair. This is insane. Why would she do that? Why would she let you suffer if she knew the truth? Because people like Lizabeth don't think like us, I said bitterly. They play games with other people's lives. We're just pieces to them, expendable, replaceable. I moved to the small kitchen, opening the refrigerator even though I had no appetite. I was her convenient shield. A way to hide the truth from Richie, to protect herself. What are you going to do? Shay asked quietly. That was the question, wasn't it? What could I do? I'd lost 15 years to a prison sentence for a crime I didn't commit. I'd believed I was fighting for my family, for my daughter, only to discover it was all built on lies. Where did someone go from there? I don't know, I admitted, closing the refrigerator and leaning against it. I honestly don't know. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Lizabeth. Please come back. We need to talk. There's more you don't understand. I showed the screen to She. More I don't understand. Can you believe that? As if learning the child isn't mine wasn't enough. Maybe you should hear her out, She suggested cautiously. I mean, I'm angry too, but what if there's more to the story? There's always more to the story with people like her, I snapped, then immediately regretted my tone. She didn't deserve my anger. I'm sorry. It's just, I can't go back there. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. She nodded slowly, then stood up and moved to the kitchen table where several envelopes lay scattered. These came for you today. Mostly bills, but one looked official. He handed me a thick envelope with a law firm's emblem in the corner. I tore it open, my eyes scanning the legal jargon until I found the relevant section. Then I read it again, not believing what I was seeing. What is it? She asked, noticing my expression change. It's from Richie's legal team, I said slowly, my mind racing. They're filing a motion to have my conviction overturned. They're admitting the evidence was planted, that I was framed. I looked up at Shay, confusion and anger warring in my chest. Why would Richie do this now? He's in prison because of me. Why would he clear my name? Maybe it's a trap, Shay suggested. Or maybe, a voice said from the doorway, making both of us jump, he has no choice. We spun around to find a man standing in the apartment entrance, his silhouette backlit by the hallway light. He was tall, well-dressed, with an air of quiet authority. But it was his face that made my blood run cold with recognition. Ada. Shay breathed, his voice a mixture of surprise and confusion. The man from the airport. The one Shay had met during his flight to Canada. He stepped into the apartment, closing the door behind him with a soft click that somehow sounded ominous. Hello, Shay, Ada said with a slight smile. I told you we'd meet again. His eyes shifted to me, and his expression grew serious. And you must be Eniola. We have a lot to discuss. How did you get in here? I demanded, my body tensing, ready for a fight if necessary. Prison had taught me that much, to always be ready. The superintendent let me in. I showed credentials. Ada reached into his jacket slowly, pulling out a leather wallet that he flipped open. Inside was a badge. Detective Ada Okonkwo, Toronto Police Service, Organized Crime Division. My heart hammered in my chest. Police? What do you want? To help you, Ada said simply. And to finally bring down the real criminals in this case. But I need your cooperation, and I need you to understand something very important. He moved to the couch, sitting down as if he'd been invited. Everything you think you know about what happened to you? You're only seeing the surface. The truth goes much deeper, and it involves more than just Lizabeth and Richie. Shay and I exchanged glances. What are you talking about? I asked. Ada leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his expression grave. Elizabeth Attawale didn't just use you as a shield against her ex-husband. She used you as a mule in an international drug trafficking operation. And Richie? He wasn't trying to frame you out of jealousy. He was trying to cover up his own involvement in that same operation. The room seemed to tilt. That's impossible. The drugs in my suitcase were supposed to be delivered to specific contacts here in Toronto, Ada interrupted. But something went wrong. Someone tipped off airport security, and you got caught instead of being waved through like dozens of times before. Dozens of times? Shui's voice was barely a whisper. Ada nodded. Elizabeth's organization has been moving cocaine from Nigeria through Canada for 3 years. They use employees, lovers, anyone vulnerable. You weren't the first, Eniola. You were just the one who got caught. I felt like I was falling, the ground disappearing beneath my feet. You're saying Elizabeth is a drug trafficker? I'm saying Elizabeth is the head of a multi-million-dollar drug trafficking network, Ada corrected. And Richie was her partner until they had a falling out. That's the real reason for their divorce. It wasn't about infidelity or irreconcilable differences. It was about territory and profit. My mind reeled, trying to process this new information. If you knew all this, why didn't you arrest her? Why did I have to go to prison? Because we didn't have enough evidence, Ada admitted. Not until recently. We needed someone on the inside, someone who could testify about the operations. And we needed to flip Richie, to make him give up Elizabeth in exchange for a reduced sentence. He looked at me intently. That's why he's clearing your name. It's part of his deal with the Crown. He admits to framing you, testifies against Elizabeth, and his sentence gets cut in half. This is insane, she muttered, pacing the small living room. This sounds like a movie. It's very real, Ada assured him. And it's dangerous. Elizabeth has people everywhere, police, judges, customs officials. That's how she's operated for so long without getting caught. But now, with Richie's testimony and your cooperation, we can finally take her down. I looked at the detective, my emotions a tangled mess of betrayal, anger, and disbelief. What do you need from me? Your testimony, Ada said. Everything you saw, everything she said, every detail about your relationship and the trips you took together. We need to build an airtight case. And if I refuse? Ada's expression hardened. Then Elizabeth walks free. She continues trafficking drugs, ruining lives, using people like chess pieces. And the child in that hospital? She grows up with a mother who's a criminal kingpin. He paused. Is that the legacy you want for her, even if she's not yours biologically? The question hung in the air, heavy with implication. I thought about the tiny infant fighting for life in the hospital, innocent of all the sins committed by the adults around her. She deserved better. They all did. I'll testify, I said finally. But I want immunity for Shei. He had nothing to do with any of this. Already granted, Ada said, pulling out a document from his briefcase. We know your brother is innocent. This is about the people at the top, not the victims they manipulated. As I took the document, my phone buzzed again. Another message from Elizabeth. Eniola, please. The baby is asking for you. She needs her father, real or not. I stared at the words, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to go back, to hold that child one more time. But another part, the part that had been broken and rebuilt in prison, knew that going back would mean stepping back into Lizabeth's web. "What happens now?" I asked Ada. "Now," the detective said, standing up, "you disappear. We put you and Shai in protective custody until the trial. Lizabeth can't know you're cooperating with us. As far as she's concerned, you're just a heartbroken man who found out his daughter isn't his and walked away." "She'll come looking for me," I said. "Let her look." Ada's smile was cold. "We'll be watching. And when she makes her move, we'll be ready." As I looked between the detective and my brother, I realized my life had just taken another turn into darkness. But this time, maybe, just maybe, there would be light at the end of the tunnel. This time, I wasn't just a victim. I was a weapon pointed at the heart of Lizabeth's empire. And I intended to pull the trigger. The safe house was nothing like I'd imagined. I'd pictured something from the movies, a dingy apartment with bars on the windows, peeling wallpaper, and the constant smell of mildew. Instead, Ada drove us to a modern townhouse in a quiet suburb of Mississauga, complete with a small garden and neighbors who waved as they walked their dogs. "Hiding in plain sight," Ada explained as he unlocked the door. "Drug traffickers expect safe houses to look abandoned or suspicious. They don't expect a nice family home in a decent neighborhood." Shai and I stepped inside to find a fully furnished space with comfortable couches, a modern kitchen, and bedrooms upstairs that looked like they belonged in a furniture catalog. It felt surreal, like stepping into someone else's life. "You'll stay here until the trial," Ada continued, setting down our hastily packed bags. "There's food in the fridge, internet access, television. You have everything you need. But there are rules." His expression grew serious. "No contact with anyone from your old life. No phone calls to Lizabeth, no emails, no social media. You're ghosts until we say otherwise." "For how long?" Shai asked, his voice small. He just arrived in Canada, excited for a new life, and now he was locked in a cage again. "Just a more comfortable one. A few months, maybe longer," Ada admitted. "Building a case against someone like Lizabeth takes time. We need to gather evidence, interview witnesses, coordinate with international law enforcement in Nigeria." He pulled out 2 new phones from his briefcase. "These are your lifelines to me. My number is the only one programmed. If you need anything, you call. If you see anything suspicious, you call. If you so much as sense something is wrong, you call immediately." I took one of the phones, the plastic cold in my hand. "And Lizabeth? What's she doing right now?" "As far as we know, she's still at the hospital with the baby," Ada said. "We have surveillance on her, but we have to be careful. She has contacts everywhere. One wrong move and she'll know we're on to her." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Eniola? I need you to start writing down everything you remember. Every conversation, every trip, every person she introduced you to. Details matter. The smallest thing could be the key to locking her away." After Ada left, the townhouse felt oppressively quiet. Shai and I stood in the living room, surrounded by the trappings of a normal life that neither of us could claim. "This is crazy," Shai finally said, dropping onto the couch. "A week ago, I was in Lagos thinking I was joining you for a fresh start. Now I'm in witness protection hiding from a drug lord who happens to be your ex." "She was never really mine," I said bitterly, moving to the window and carefully peering through the blinds. The street outside looked peaceful, ordinary. She was everyone's and no one's. Just a master manipulator playing us all. Do you think she loved you? Even a little? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on the betrayal, on the lies about the baby and the drugs, that I hadn't stopped to consider whether any of it had been real. Had there been genuine feelings beneath the manipulation? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe at first. Or maybe I was just convenient. A maintenance worker, grateful for her attention, easy to control. I turned to face Shay. What about you? That detective, Ada. He said you met on the plane. Shay nodded. Yeah, he sat next to me. We talked about Nigeria, about coming to Canada. He seemed really interested in my story, asked a lot of questions about you and Elizabeth. His eyes widened. You don't think? He was already investigating, I finished. He probably knew you were coming and arranged to be on that flight. Wanted to get a read on you, see if you were involved. That's creepy. That's police work, I corrected. And it might have saved your life. If you'd been with me when I confronted Elizabeth, who knows what would have happened. We spent the rest of the day trying to settle into our new reality. Shoy explored the house, finding clothes in the closets that fit him perfectly, proof that this safe house had been used before for other witnesses. I sat at the dining table with a notebook Ada had left, trying to remember every detail of my time with Elizabeth. The first time we'd met, I'd been fixing the air conditioning in her Lagos office. She'd been frustrated, sweating through her expensive blouse, complaining about the heat. I'd made her laugh with some stupid joke, and she'd looked at me differently after that. Like I was a person, not just the help. Our first date had been secret, hidden. She'd picked me up in an unmarked car, taken me to a restaurant where no one would recognize her. I'd felt special, chosen. Now I realized it was all calculation. She needed someone off the radar, someone she could use. When had she decided to make me a drug mule? Was it always the plan, or had it evolved? I remembered her suggesting the Canada trip, how enthusiastic she'd been about giving me and Shoy a better life. She'd handled all the packing, insisted on it. Said she wanted everything to be perfect. The drugs must have been planted then, carefully hidden in my suitcase while I was distracted with dreams of a new beginning. Iniola, Shay called from upstairs, his voice urgent. You need to see this. I climbed the stairs to find him in one of the bedrooms, his face pale as he stared at a laptop he'd found in the closet. What is it? News, he said, turning the screen toward me. About Elizabeth. The headline made my blood run cold. Billionaire CEO Elizabeth Attewell hospitalized, baby's condition critical. I scanned the article quickly. It claimed the baby had taken a turn for the worse, that doctors were fighting to save her life. Elizabeth was quoted, her words dripping with anguish. I just want my daughter to be okay. Her father has abandoned us in our darkest hour, but I refuse to give up hope. She's playing the victim card, Shoy observed. And turning me into the villain, I added, anger rising in my chest. Classic Elizabeth. Control the narrative, manipulate public opinion. My new phone buzzed. A text from Ada, saw the news. Don't react. It's bait. She wants you to come back. Stay put. But as I read that message, another thought crept into my mind. What if the baby really was dying? What if this wasn't manipulation, but genuine crisis? She might not be my biological daughter, but I'd held her, promised to protect her. Could I really let her die without saying goodbye? Don't even think about it, she said, reading my expression. Ada said it's a trap. What if it's not? What if she really is dying? Then she'll die with or without you there, she said bluntly. And if you go back, you might not come out alive. Lizabeth knows you know too much now. You're a liability. He was right, logically. But logic didn't ease the guilt gnawing at my gut. I moved to the window again, staring out at the suburban street, feeling trapped despite the comfortable surroundings. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the baby's face, tiny and helpless. I heard Lizabeth's sobs in the hospital corridor, real or performed. I felt the weight of the lies pressing down on my chest like concrete. Around 2 a.m., I heard a sound downstairs. My body went rigid, prison instincts kicking in. I grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, crept to the door, and listened. Footsteps, careful and deliberate, moving through the first floor. I looked across the hall to Shay's room. His door was closed, no light underneath. Was he asleep, or had he heard it too? Slowly, I opened my door and peered into the hallway. Nothing. But the footsteps continued below, growing closer to the stairs. My heart hammered as I gripped the lamp tighter, preparing for confrontation. A shadow appeared at the bottom of the stairs. Then a voice, familiar and cold, "You can come down, Eniola. I know you're awake." It was Ada. Relief flooded through me as I descended the stairs, setting down the lamp. "You scared the hell out of me. What are you doing here at 2 a.m.? The detective's expression was grim. "We have a problem. Someone tried to break into the hospital tonight. They were going after the baby." My blood turned to ice. "What? Is she okay?" "She's fine. Hospital security stopped them before they got to the NICU. But Eniola." He paused, his jaw tight. "The man they caught? He works for Lizabeth. And he was carrying a syringe filled with potassium chloride. Enough to stop a baby's heart and make it look like natural complications." I staggered backward, gripping the railing for support. Lizabeth tried to kill her own daughter? "Not her daughter," Ada corrected. "Richie's daughter. Think about it. With the baby dead, there's no physical evidence of her affair with Richie. No DNA to tie them together. And with you out of the picture, she can play the grieving mother, gather sympathy, make it harder for us to prosecute her." "She's a monster," I breathed. "She's a survivor," Ada said. "And survivors do terrible things to stay alive. Which is why we're moving up our timeline. We're going to arrest her tomorrow. And you're going to help us do it." "You want me to wear a wire?" I stared at Ada as if he'd suggested I walk into a lion's den covered in meat. "Are you insane? If Lizabeth finds out I'm working with the police, I'm dead." "She won't find out," Ada insisted, holding up a device so small it could fit in the palm of my hand. "This is state-of-the-art surveillance tech. It's woven into the fabric of a shirt. No bulky wires, no obvious microphones. She'd have to strip-search you to find it." "That's not exactly reassuring," Shay muttered from his spot on the couch, where he'd been listening to this insane plan unfold. "Big brother, this is suicide." "It's justice," Ada corrected. "Look, we have Richie's testimony, we have financial records, we have surveillance footage. But what we don't have is Lizabeth on record admitting to her crimes. We need her to incriminate herself, and the only person she might let her guard down around is you." I paced the living room, my mind racing. She thinks I abandoned her and the baby. Why would she even agree to see me? Because you're going to tell her you want to make things right, Ada explained. You're going to say you've been thinking about everything, that you were hurt and angry, but you realize the baby still needs you. You're going to appeal to her ego, make her think she still has control over you. And then what? I just ask her if she's been trafficking drugs? That'll go over well. Ada shook his head. You don't ask her anything directly. You guide the conversation. Talk about the trips you took together, the business associates she introduced you to. Mention the suitcase, how you never understood what went wrong at the airport. If she thinks you're still in the dark, still loyal, she might let something slip. And if she doesn't? Then we use what we have and hope it's enough, Ada admitted. But Eniola, this is our best shot at putting her away for decades instead of just a few years. Drug trafficking, attempted murder of a minor, conspiracy, witness tampering. We're building a case that will ensure she never hurts anyone again. I thought about Marco, my cellmate in prison who taught me that survival sometimes meant doing things that terrified you. I thought about the baby in the hospital, innocent and helpless, targeted by the woman who'd given birth to her. I thought about all the other people Elizabeth had used and destroyed in her climb to power. Okay, I said finally. I'll do it. She stood up abruptly. No. Absolutely not. This is insane. It's the right thing, I told my brother, meeting his eyes. I can't let her keep hurting people. If this is how I can stop her, then I have to try. You could die trying. I could die doing nothing, I countered. At least this way, my life means something. 2 hours later, I was wearing the wired shirt and sitting in Ada's unmarked car outside the hospital. My palms were sweating, my heart racing. Through the earpiece hidden in my ear, I could hear the technical team testing the equipment. Audio check, a voice said. Say something, Eniola. This is the worst idea ever, I muttered. Loud and clear, the voice replied with a hint of amusement. Remember, we're listening to everything. If things go south, we're 30 seconds away. Just say the word Lagos and we'll come in. Lagos. The city where this nightmare had started. Where I'd been a nobody, a maintenance worker with dreams of something better. Where Elizabeth had spotted me and decided I'd be useful. You ready? Ada asked from the driver's seat. No, I admitted. But let's do it anyway. The hospital lobby was busy despite the late hour, visitors coming and going, doctors paging each other over the intercom. I made my way to the elevators, trying to look casual even though every nerve in my body was screaming at me to run. Elizabeth was in a private room on the 4th floor, staying close to the NICU where the baby was being treated. Ada had called ahead, told her I wanted to talk. She'd agreed immediately, which should have been my first warning that this was a trap. I knocked on the door, and her voice called out, "Come in." She was sitting by the window, backlit by the city lights, her hair perfectly styled despite everything. She'd changed into a designer tracksuit, the kind that cost more than most people's monthly rent. When she saw me, her expression cycled through surprise, relief, and something else I couldn't quite read. Eniola, she breathed, standing up. You came. I had to, I said, staying near the door. I couldn't just abandon the baby, even if. I let the sentence hang. Even if she's not yours, Elizabeth finished, moving closer. I know what the tests said. I know you must hate me. I don't hate you, I lied, channeling every acting skill I'd never known I had. I'm hurt. Confused. But I've been thinking about everything, about how you took care of me, gave me opportunities. That has to count for something. Lizabeth's eyes glistened with tears. Real or fake? I couldn't tell anymore. I never meant to hurt you. You have to believe that. When I found out I was pregnant, I genuinely didn't know who the father was. Richie and I had a complicated relationship, and you and I were what? I prompted gently, remembering Ada's instructions. Get her talking. Let her explain. We're something real, she said, reaching for my hand. I forced myself not to pull away. At least, it felt real to me. Maybe I'm a terrible person for not being certain about the baby's paternity, but I wanted her to be yours. I wanted us to be a family. What about the drugs? I asked, keeping my voice soft, non-accusatory. What happened at the airport? I still don't understand how cocaine ended up in my suitcase. Lizabeth's expression flickered, just for a moment. That was Richie. He must have planted them before we left Lagos. He wanted to destroy what we had, wanted to take you away from me. But how would he have access to my suitcase? He has people everywhere, she said quickly. Too quickly. He's powerful, vindictive. You saw what he did at the trial, how he lied about you. The man is capable of anything. I nodded slowly, pretending to accept her explanation. The people you introduced me to in Lagos, those business associates. Were any of them working with Richie? Another flicker. Why are you asking about them? Because I'm trying to understand, I said, taking a risk. If Richie planted the drugs, he must have had help. Someone who knew our travel plans, who could access my luggage. Someone close to you. Lizabeth pulled her hand away, her expression hardening. What are you suggesting? Nothing, I backpedaled. I'm just trying to make sense of everything. I spent months in prison, Lizabeth. Months surrounded by criminals, fighting every day just to survive. I need to understand why it happened. She studied me for a long moment, and I felt exposed under her gaze, as if she could see through the wire, through my skin, straight to the truth I was hiding. Then her expression softened again, the mask sliding back into place. I know you suffered, she said quietly. And I'm sorry for that. But we can move forward now. Richie is in prison, the truth is coming out, and we can finally be together without his shadow over us. What about your business? I asked, shifting tactics. All those trips to Canada, the contacts you made here, were they all legitimate? Of course they were, Lizabeth said, but her voice carried a defensive edge now. I built an empire through hard work and smart investments. Chevron's West Africa division thrived under my leadership. I'm sure it did, I agreed. But some of those investments, the ones you never talked about in detail, were they connected to Richie? Why do you keep bringing up Richie? Her voice rose slightly. He's irrelevant now. He's locked up, paying for what he did to you. Is he though? I pressed, feeling the wire against my chest like a second heartbeat. Because from where I'm standing, it feels like there's more to this story. Like maybe both of you were involved in something bigger than just a toxic marriage. Lizabeth's face went pale, then flushed with anger. Get out. Lizabeth. I said get out. She pointed at the door, her hand trembling. I thought you came here to make peace, to be there for the baby. But you're interrogating me like I'm some kind of criminal. I'm just asking questions, I said, holding up my hands in a placating gesture. Questions that sound a lot like accusations, she shot back. Did someone send you here? The police? Are you working with them? My blood turned to ice. No, I just... Lagos, I said suddenly, the safe word tumbling out before I could stop it. Lizabeth's eyes narrowed. What did you just say? I said Lagos, I repeated, backing toward the door. That's where this all started. In Lagos. And maybe that's where the truth is buried too. I heard footsteps in the hallway, rapid and purposeful. Ada and his team were coming, but would they make it before Lizabeth did something desperate? She moved toward her purse on the side table, and I saw the flash of metal. You're wearing a wire, aren't you? Her voice was cold now, all pretense of emotion gone. You stupid, stupid man. Do you have any idea what you've done? The door burst open, and Ada rushed in with 3 uniformed officers behind him. Lizabeth Adawale, you're under arrest for drug trafficking, attempted murder, and conspiracy. Lizabeth's laugh was bitter and sharp. You think you can touch me? I have lawyers, judges, politicians in my pocket. I'll be out before the paperwork is done. Not this time, Ada said, nodding to the officers who moved forward with handcuffs. We have everything. Financial records, witness testimony, and thanks to Eniola, a recorded confession. I didn't confess to anything, Lizabeth snarled, her eyes locked on me with pure hatred. You confirmed Richie's involvement in your business dealings, Ada countered. You admitted to knowing about the drugs in Eniola's suitcase, implied you had contacts that could have prevented his arrest. That's enough for conspiracy charges, and once we dig deeper into your empire, we'll find the rest. As they led her away in handcuffs, Lizabeth looked back at me one last time. You've killed us both, she said quietly. You just don't know it yet. The words sent a chill down my spine, but I forced myself to stand firm. This was over. Finally, it was over. Or so I thought. What is your view about this story? Where are you watching from? Would you like to see the next part? Do well to. Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories.